We all have our own scars, our own story, the places where we've been. What scares therapists? Therapist blocks.
Welcome to the Leading Edge in Emotionally Focused Therapy with your hosts, Dr. James Hawkins and Dr. Ryan Rana. EFT is a dynamic model that humbles even the most seasoned therapists. Together, we want to come alongside you as you continually push the leading edge of your understanding and application of this wonderful model developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hey, welcome back. It's great to be with you. Great to have James back in the studio. He's looking cool today. His shoes matches his shirt. Pretty cool. I'm just lucky to find my shoes. Definitely lucky to get them on these days. It's great to be back with you. I want to say thank you for your work and how hard you stand in the gap for people, for never giving up. How about that? For hanging in there, not giving up on people, not giving up on yourself, and continuing to fight for healing in people's lives. Thank you.
I agree, Ryan. I think my thank yous are going to definitely come some more as we go through this podcast. The inspiration behind some of it is just looking into the eyes of clinicians who earnestly want to learn. That's motivating for me. Like, you can tell, like, it's not just another thing to get CEUs. It's not just another training to get through to put initials on behind their name. But they're like, I earnestly want to get this. And I can even appreciate their frustration kind of with themselves, where they're like, I'm not getting it. What's wrong? And the part we're going to address is like when they start, what's wrong with me? What are my blocks? And sometimes that, like, and I don't know what to do with them, James. I believe in this model and I believe where you're going, but I don't know how to get past my own stuff. So we'll talk about some of that today.
All right, sounds good. So James, to me, you're one of the leaders in this area. You know, you and Chad do an excellent. Is it a 2-day?
Yeah.
On Self of the Therapist. You got one coming up?
No, we went. Life was crazy, so we canceled it. For now.
You did?
Yeah, self of the Therapist.
That's a block right there. Yeah. No, but you and Dr. Chad Imhoff do a beautiful job with the 2-day. Yeah. Karen Junta does a great job. George, other people really dive in here.
I want to give Lisa Palmer Olsen a shot because I think her and George used to be the trainers that traveled around doing this before.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. She's the one that told me about it.
I would think I'm going to offend her, but I doubt she listens. So. But it's
somebody will tell Lisa about this one.
Lisa is awesome. Tell her I said that, and she really is. So I'm happy to just kind of center this up with you. This is the topic that you picked. I like it too. I told you before we came on, I only have one point I want to make. So tell me first why this topic, like what comes up for you to bring that along.
Well, I guess, I should start off maybe vulnerably for me. We were even talking about this. I came into EFT. I think I was a pretty smart person that got my Ph.D. I could figure things out. I had a medical training background. I was a nurse in the military, was thinking about being a physician's assistant at one time. So I could figure things out, diagnose problems. But when EFT, it definitely pushed me to access more of me and not just try to outthink things or get ahead of things.
Okay.
And specifically, even talking with, I remember Ryan's gift that I really learned at the beginning, his ability for metaphors. Sometimes in therapy, I wouldn't slow down and let my brain and just ask for, can I take a moment to think about this and let it come alive in me? How do you help me with even using those nonverbal cues? So my big EFT, I would say, what do they say? They call it like a glow up. Sometimes when celebrities get famous and they start looking good, it's like the glow up. My big glow up was learning how to find access to James and use James in the process.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Before you go on, you got some good stuff to say.
Yeah.
You said you wouldn't slow down before.
Yeah.
What were you chasing?
Man, I if I'm gonna be honest, I'm just gonna tell it. Like, I'm proving how smart I am.
Okay.
I can tell you, I see your problem already. Let me tell you what I see.
Okay.
But not in a way that was really like allowing the process to come to me, and let the clients also walk into some of their discovery.
Okay.
I was trying to be. I know we want to sometimes be on the edge. I would say I was probably 5 steps out ahead of them.
Okay. I'll defend you a little bit. You
Go
wanted
ahead.
to help.
Yeah.
And you wanted to be competent.
100%.
Both things are important.
Which is just, once again, why these therapists motivated me and say, you know what? it's not fair. I'm getting this from, it's not fair what the cycle does to the therapist either sometimes. How the cycle takes the best intents of a therapist and flips it right upside. By the way, Ryan's got a new signal he does with his hand for the cycle. If you know anything about Texas football with hook 'em horns, except we're not making the horns, but Ryan takes his finger, he twists them like the cycle just twists your best intent and flips it upside down. And it does the same thing to I see some great therapists around the United States, and I'm sure overseas. I just train in the U.S.
That's a great point. I've not thought of it quite that way.
Yeah, and I mean, Ryan, I see you fight for this, like, because that's the thing where, with a lot of what we do in SV on that side is not to try and make something new. What we say is we are seeing a lot of competent people who really have the heart for this model and want to do it well, but sometimes their own blocks get them because EFT is an experiential model. That requires some presence from the therapist.
Yeah. All right. So what's the sort of the main couple points you want to send to our listeners?
Yeah. So I think I'll just go through some of the fears I've had of my own blocks and also the ones I'm hearing from participants out in the field.
Okay.
Here's one that definitely hits me. Maybe it's not the number one, but it's the one that comes out a lot. But what if I don't have that kind of emotional range like you, James? I've not done emotions like that in my life.
Yep.
I don't feel things that way. I'm not mushy. I'm not sentimental. I'm not all these things. Like, it's like what they're really saying is a little bit. Let me go back for a second. Because the way when me and Ryan use this term block, we're not using it judgmentally or pejoratively in a way. What we're saying is just like how we work with our clients. It's just mistrust in action. And so even with this one, sometimes the therapists don't trust that their nervous system really is a good barometer for picking up on what's happening inside the room with the client. And maybe their body's trying to give them information that sometimes they haven't really realized there's value there. Your body's always speaking, whether you're aware of it or not. That's a good nugget y'all should keep. The therapist's body is always picking up on things and making assessments. We just don't slow down and get to listen to it all the time. So on that is with clients not having range, I always tell people, like, you've got more range than you know.
Yep.
But there's things like, for me, I'll know it sounds strange. Even when I would watch movies at the beginning in my training process, Ryan, I'd be watching a movie. I'd be like, I wonder what that is like for them. How are they making sense of this situation? What triggered I would almost be in a sense, and I didn't realize at that moment, my nervous system began picking up on things and feeling things. It is doing some of the work on ourselves to say, you know what happened there for me? Why didn't that moment when Nicola said that, what was it about that got my own nervous system? And started learning and tuning into my own body, showed me I have more resources than I thought.
Because range is utilization.
Yep.
If you haven't used that edge of the continuum of emotion, then you don't have it. But you have it, you just hadn't used it.
Yep.
So if you want it, you got to practice it.
That's right.
Yeah, and then your body will find it again. We probably all have the exact same amount of range.
Yeah.
We just have very different utilization patterns.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good one, Ryan. Because I had this one friend that was in the military. He never ran, right?
Yep.
But somehow he could just get out on a cold day and just and with us, and he'd be like, all right, let's go. He could run with us. But we never understood the full range of his, kind of like what felt like natural potential until he's like, you know what? Maybe I do got something. Maybe I should start training. Next thing you know, this guy's running marathons competitively, but the range was there, but he didn't have full access to it because he had never tried it and pushed it to see how far he could go with it.
Yeah. And that's a performance area. Emotion is a survival area.
Ooh,
right?
Our
emotions are based in survival instincts. So I think there's a pretty good chance we all kind of have pretty similar ones, but we all vastly different in how they're practiced and even like what's allowed in your family of origin. And, if emotions get you in trouble, then your body starts to mark them off. And if emotion leads you to more connection, you start doing more of them. So like this reinforced conditioning of utilization or something.
Yep. And so the practical step I have with that one is not only just the movie thing, that's just one of my odd quirks, but it's okay. Like if you find that there's a certain maybe emotional presentation or experience that pushes you, before you try and make I would say, how can I say this in a nicer way? Before you start trying to find ways to not have to ever go there, go ahead and just do the same thing we do with our clients. Like, what's the trigger there? What's happening? What's the meaning I'm making? So if I'm going to tell my own personal story, I did struggle with other people's anger. And some of that, when I did some of the work, it was revolved around a stepfather. And it was like, when he got angry, that means all bets were off. No one was safe. It was going to be his way. So then I run into anger or the potential for anger in session. I would find myself trying to curb the anger before I ever took a moment to understand it or to put it in context of the cycle about why it's showing up in the room right here, right now. And I'm not even talking about anger. It's not even like name calling or anything like that. And I was like, whoa, what's happening there? So I had to do my own with that. And then even with that, though, George helped me with this. He didn't apply it to this area. But I had to learn how to teach myself certain phrases or certain things to say to myself to ground myself back in safety.
Like?
Something like, James, it's okay. Just hope the anger might feel uncomfortable to your body, but it's here for a reason. Just slow down and go find out the reason why it's here. And through me pushing through that, though, I'm not going to say like I'm happy about anger, but what it is, it doesn't threaten me any much because I know like it'll be there maybe 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Maybe it could be longer. That hasn't happened many times in my session. But when you go towards it, it actually begins to subside. My problem was I kept hedging my bets before I got to that reward point. Mm-hmm. So then it was teaching me it'll never work.
All right, man. Okay. You said 3 really important things there. Mm-hmm. 1, thank you for sharing about your family of origin stuff, mm-hmm. your stepdad. That's personal. Mm-hmm. Not easy to do. Appreciate mm-hmm. you letting us in on that. And secondly, then you begin to assemble. Mm-hmm. So when you find, I think what you're trying to say is when you find an area that you're constricted, that you're not as rangy as you want to be, get curious.
That's right.
Instead of getting mad at yourself or disqualifying yourself, that I don't have it. Like look at the good reasons you have. So you start assembling the constriction is what you're saying with the trigger and so forth. And the third part, you went really fast.
Go ahead.
The third part was you find a way to sort of regulate, to do some self-regulation in session, which allows you to move forward. Is that right?
100%.
That's good stuff. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and hear more about it.
It's an honor for Ryan and I to get to come to you on these airwaves, to meet you where you are with you and your clients who are pushing the leading edge in your clinical work. And we're thankful for this opportunity and for the work that you do. And we want to invite you that if you believe in the concepts of this podcast and you find them helpful, as we do, we just invite you to be able to invest and to help keep this mission and this project going. You can support us by going on Venmo and looking for @Left Podcast. That's at LEFT PODCAST Left Podcast. And you can show your support. Once again, if you yourself are in a hard position or you serve maybe less resource population and therefore it affects your fees, please don't worry about giving. Just continue to enjoy. But if you can, we invite you to help support this mission and keep it going. Thank you so much. And also with that, we want to just always promote ICEEFT. ICEEFT is an International Center for Excellence in Emotionally Focused Therapy, developed by Sue Johnson and her team. And ICEEFT has a lot of great resources. If you go to ICEEFT.com, you can see the latest research on there. There's newsletters. You can find out all about the trainings that are happening around the world in different languages, about different focus areas. If you become a member of ICEEFT, you also get discounts on some of the training resources. And when we have another summit again, you get ICEEFT members get a discount. Also, being a member allows you to be plugged into the ICEEFT membership that's around the world, where different trainers and people get on the listserv and talk about different topics, share resources about upcoming trainings, hold me types. Mm-hmm. So we just want to let you know about that great resource at ICEEFT.com.
Yeah, and with Sue being gone, we need unity more than we ever have. So consider joining up with us if you hadn't already.
All right. All right, Ryan, we're back.
All right, you were sharing great stuff there, rolling out some of your self-therapist process.
And I better go a little bit quicker because I got more to cover. Another one, though, was I want to make it 2, but it's scared to be directive. That was a big one for therapists. What scares therapists is they are afraid that being directive is somehow going to make their clients not like them. Or I'm going to steal another one from George. And that's sometimes we don't believe in the resiliency of our clients fully. And so what George meant with that is, hey, even when you have to be directive, sometimes we have to refocus or or interrupt to refocus, your clients can they can recover from that.
Yep.
They can recover. As a matter of fact, they'll thank you for it later. So that's scared to be directive. And the practical to that was what I learned was, and if I want to encourage you, it's okay to ask your clients to slow down. Matter of fact, it's not even just okay. It's almost mandatory. And what I mean by that is a quote from Sue: reactivity happens fast, vulnerability happens slow. You have to be able to slow down. And when your clients give you a good attachment loaded emotional handle, Sue's favorite phrase was, "Can I go back? Can I go back?" I was just in Atlanta, and a great EFT supervisor in that community, she coded the session for me. And she said, "James, you asked them to go back or slow down in different variations 22 times.
Nice.
I wasn't brave enough to do that before. I was blocked on that, Ryan. So what happened was the reactivity and pace of the cycle dictated my session, and I was not the stronger, wiser other.
Gotcha. Because something in you said that if I slow them down, it's going to be too much or disruptive or
disruptive.
Rude,
I don't want.
rude.
Yep. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to do the same thing the cycle does to them. However, I was still invariably doing that.
Right. That's a great thing to study, man.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Another block that I saw for therapists is, I know this sounds strange, so I got air quotes going here in the studio, trying too hard to get it right instead of just being being attuned. So what I mean by right, they want everything to go perfectly. I wish that could happen. So for example, when I say perfectly, they want every conjecture to, when they say, "Am I getting it close?" Yes, exactly it. It's okay if a conjecture is a little bit off, and your client corrects you. That's actually still a win.
Yep.
Another one is trying to get it so right. This is one I think you just talked about recently, Ryan. They only want to do enactments when it's absolutely perfect. Well, if you wait for it to be absolutely perfect, you probably won't be doing enactments ever. They don't realize that sometimes getting an enactment up and going can be diagnostic. It can be evocative in and of itself. And it's okay in that part is that you have block work that you can do. Or, we'll talk about that. But then also another thing is, even if you try an intervention and it doesn't land, classic George is, just know you can pivot. It's okay if you don't get it right. Here's a phrase I'm going to give y'all. You can just tell your client, "I'm sorry, my bad. I was too wordy there." Or, "You know what? I could have asked that a different way. You know what? I keep asking you all these open-ended questions. That's just too big. Can I make it smaller a little bit? I need multiple choice questions for myself sometimes. Can I ask you a multiple choice question maybe?" Just different ways and variations on how to say, "I'm sorry. Can we go back and try that again?" And I think the therapist's fear is they're going to think I'm incompetent. They're going to think there's something wrong with me. Why would they trust me? Why are they paying me the fee that they're paying me if I don't get everything right? And that's just something that at least it blocked me in my own head, if I'm being honest. And here's another one. The fear of getting lost.
It's a big one.
And particularly they say, "Well, what do you mean?" About either opening up very volatile content type issue. They're like, "Oh, I don't want to open that up because I don't know where that's going to take us." Or fear of getting lost in that sometimes, like when the depth of the session drops, they're like, "Uh-oh, hold on, let me back up, hit the brakes here. Like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to go down into that, or I'm not sure where that will take us." And so they kind of, going back to the word you used earlier, they kind of cut off curiosity to say, "You know what? We haven't been in this cavern of the cave, but can I go with you? Can we try and bring a little light to this area that maybe hasn't been explored, but we know it's scary. We know it's a rough place in your relationship. And I'm not quite sure where it's going to take us. If we get a little bit lost, it's okay. But can we try and go there anyway?" That's wording I use when I'm scared sometimes, and letting the client even in a way know, but we're going to be okay. It's like, that's me being the stronger, wiser other. It's scary, but we're going to be okay. Let's go.
So a theme here of soothing. Soothing yourself, soothing your client, soothing the process, making the whole thing safer, slower.
Yeah.
That's a big part of it for you.
Yeah. And I guess that goes to, this is what I'm taking from, I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jim Furrow in his research on pursuer softening. They said another one that they saw for therapists was they had like a fear allergy. They were afraid of like really heightening and going towards fears that are already present. And that goes into another one, I guess I found with therapists is but am I making it worse? And the answer I usually give to them is this. We are not trying to make up something that's not there. We're trying to find the darkness and fear that pursues them all the time that they never get to have success with.
So that they're not alone in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. 100%.
Right.
Those are the main things on my list, Ryan.
Okay.
I don't know if you had another point to add.
Just a
on
couple short ones.
Go ahead.
I'm going to start and end with sports stories. People love that.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. I'm not a performance psychologist, but I do practice that some. People don't know that about me. Not very often, but it's funny. Every certain times in the season, inevitably, athletes are having trouble, and I start getting phone calls. I hear you do this. I'm like, I'm not licensed to do it, but all right, I'll meet a couple times. Like April, May, June, a lot of baseball players are coming in. They're in slumps, right? They don't have anything physically wrong. They've just lost their confidence. And so anyway, I won't go into all of what we do, but the core of performance psychology, as I was trained in it some, and again, I'm not licensed, but I was trained in it some, and it's performance psychology is really your relationship to fear, right? So if you think about affect assembly and fear as both an emotion and almost an action tendency, you have the talent that you have, and how much you can access that talent really depends on can you utilize fear. Do you run away from fear? Does fear paralyze you? Does fear motivate you? And so that's what we talk a lot about in performance psychology. And I think it translates into what you're saying actually very well. So that's my first point. Really quickly, one of the things that I notice here, and the context was interesting. The context was a public speaker. It's a really long story, but to the point, there was 3 or 4 of us talking about this public speaker and the things that we liked and did not like about this public speaker. And the person that was sitting next to me made a brilliant comment. And that is, this public speaker tends to be repetitive in what they say. And she, being a therapist, said, you know what, that's probably what he needed in his life. So he speaks on it all the time in his effort to help others. I'm like, man, that's right. It's pretty good. And
nice
I think we all do that.
Yeah.
Right. So and that's not necessarily bad. What's dangerous is if you're doing that and you don't know it. So whatever it took for you to survive your painful places, notice if that's always where you're trying to take others. Because that can do different things, right? Sometimes it can be helpful, and there's hope in that. Sometimes it can be a good thing, but we're overusing it where it doesn't really fit. That was kind of the point she was making about that speaker. And then other times it can be dangerous, like it's a projected thing that doesn't go there. Like this is something that's happening for me that my body's bringing forth and trying to put it in places where it doesn't fit. So once again, even if that happens, it's not the end of the world. We just got to notice it. And yet at the same time, I think we do want to pull resources from our experiences, right? Because you're here, which means you survived something. And therefore, there's hope in that. So back to the sports thing. Just real quickly, one of my many jobs I've worked in my life, I was a professional scout in Major League Baseball for the Baltimore Orioles. Really briefly, I was part-time. I was part-time. It was not significant. Okay. I was like 22, just for a couple of years. But I do remember they would call me a couple times a year, which shows you how important I was. A couple times a year, and they're like, look, Rana, all we need is a pitcher out of the Midwest. That's where I lived at the time, in Kansas City. And so they were like, hey, we'd like for you to take in maybe 15 games, at the high school level. Here's what we're looking for. If there's a great hitter, don't even call us. We don't want to know. And Albert Pujols was in my area, so I scouted him.
Oh, wow.
That's a long, sad story. But anyway, we're only looking for pitchers. So here's what we want. We want a kid who's like 16 or even younger. We want him to hit 90 miles an hour, and we don't care where it goes. In fact, the worse he is, the better. Don't call us a kid who's really, really good and got his game figured out. What we're looking for is that diamond in the rough. We want a kid who throws at 93 off the backstop, who doesn't know where it's going to go. Call us, right? And then they said, because if he can do it one time, we'll teach him to do it forever.
Wow.
And so I think in our stories that scarred us, that stepdads or whatever the situation was, sidebar for me, One of my scary things is what I did in this podcast, if you notice, which is me sitting in silence for a long time. And part of that is because I probably had ADD processes before we knew such a thing was called that. And if I was completely quiet too long, I would lose attunement. Right. So if you notice, I use a lot of words, or if I ever come across as pressed a little bit, even in this podcast, I get it. I hear it too. Part of that is me trying to keep these bad things from happening. Right. So speaking of self with the therapist, but just like the professional scout, what they told me is there everything that we survived has a great resource in it. So in other words, if I can go into pain one time, we messed our microphone there, sorry. If I can go into pain one time and come out with repair, now my body knows it can be done. And I can transmit that hope to other people who are scared to go into pain.
That's good.
So there's that I think positive motivation for self with the therapist.
Man, well, Ryan, thank you for even sharing. I learned more about you in this. Thank you for sharing your heart in here too.
Same to you.
Thank you, man. And we do this once again because we do I hope you pick up on. It feels cliche, but we care about you all. Our world needs more people who are willing to go into the dark, painful places to help people who are struggling there, to give them some rounds of success in their vulnerability. So that's why this matters. And once again, I hope you hear in this, I see so many. I meet great therapists who mean so much good, and I'm like, hey, you got this. You actually know it. I send my family member to you. I just hate that this cycle tells you that you suck or that there's something wrong with you. Yeah. You just have blocks like your clients have blocks. And trust me, if you can work through those, you're going to be a phenomenal therapist. Even
specifically, I would say on those days you're feeling that way, you're probably really close to a breakthrough.
Ooh.
Because you have that awareness, you see. Once you're seeing that it's wrong, you're very, very close to the next piece of the learning curve.
Well, while I got a kind of shade tree sports psychologist here, I've always wondered that when I watch performances, whether it's athletes or even singers and dancers, what I've noticed is they have to risk looking silly to actually do what they do well. Yep. Here's what I mean. Like, you're a baseball player. You can't swing in a way to if I miss, I don't want to look silly. Like, baseball players, they fully commit to their swing, even if it means they might get spun around in the batter's box.
Yep.
Or a singer can't kind of I saw one time on The Voice, the person tried to kind of sing like they were scared, and Jennifer Hudson caught it. And she's like, I would like to know what it sounds like if you just fully sang from your full diaphragm and didn't hold your voice back. It's kind of like you're singing safe right now.
That's good.
I was like, whoa.
Love it. So now you're applying vulnerability to performance.
It is, man.
Which there's no performance without it.
That's right.
And people don't talk about vulnerability in sports and war, but it totally is. You got to step on the battlefield to be a soldier. You got to step in the box to play baseball. And baseball is the ultimate failure sport.
And be willing to look silly. And
you will.
And this happens to us as EFT therapists. You can easily say, hey, wow, I see that tear in your eye. You're taking that slow breath. What's that like for you? I don't know. You're sitting there like, oh, I just completely whiffed it. But anyway.
As my kids say, you got to shoot your shot.
There you go.
You can't be great if you're not willing to fail. And you're going to fail.
Yeah.
But if you fail enough times, your body, let's go one more thing from performance psychology. It's called the Bernstein principle.
Ooh.
Yeah, which is not the Bears, the Bernstein principle, which I messed this up when I had kids. They say if you want to teach your kid to hit, take them out when they're 7 with a big wiffle ball and a big bat and just say hit it as far as you can. Don't teach them at all for a year or two. Just hit it as far as you can. And their body will change their process based on the outcome. They'll train their self based on the feedback of what the ball does. And that's really true for all kinds of learning processes. So our clients teach us, our videos teach us. If you'll just keep showing up, the more frustrated you get actually shows that you're coming into awareness.
Wow.
You just got to, be resilient, hang in there, keep coming. And next thing you know, your body will start to auto-correct so much of what you need.
I agree with that, which is why we train the way we do in EFT with those role plays that everyone hates.
Yep.
But your body needs a chance to swing and risk looking silly in a safe environment. Well, we could keep going on and on. Y'all, thank you so much.
One last thing. It's also what we're asking of our clients.
That's right.
Every enactment, same exact principle. Yep.
That's a good one. Thanks, Ryan. That's a great ending note. Yep. Thank you all for what you do. Thank you for pushing the leading edge.
Thank you for listening. We hope this experience helps you push the leading edge in your work to help people connect with themselves and with each other. Please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. You can contact us at pushtheleadingedge@gmail.com, and you can follow us on our Facebook page at Push the Leading Edge. You can follow Ryan on Facebook at Ryan Rana Professional Training and on his website, ryanranatraining.com. You can follow James on Facebook and Instagram at DocHawkLPC. You can also check out his website, dochawklpc.com.